All right, let's just jump right in. The whole world of quality assurance, or QA, is changing. And honestly, it's happening way faster than most of us think. To really get a grip on how big this change is, I want to start with a pretty bold statement from someone who's been in the trenches for over a decade. He said, "Traditional QA is quite dead." Wow. Now, that's not just some random hot take you'd find on a blog, right? This is coming from Rudy, a pro with 13 years of hardcore senior-level experience in test automation. So, that begs the question, what killed it? And more importantly, what's taking its place? You know, for years, the goalposts for what it means to be a QA engineer have just kept moving. First, manual testing was enough. Then, nope, that wasn't good enough. You had to learn automation. And then, just having automation scripts wasn't the whole story either. You had to know how to integrate them into CI/CD pipelines. This whole evolution, it's a direct response to a really fundamental problem in the way we build software. The industry's answer to this problem is a concept called the shift left mandate. The core idea is actually pretty simple when you break it down. Basically, testing at the very end of the development cycle is just too slow, it's way too expensive, and it creates a ton of friction. To really understand why, we've got to look at the old way of doing things. For decades, we had this thing called the wall of confusion. It's kind of funny, but it was a real problem. Developers would write their code, bundle it up, and then basically just throw it over a metaphorical wall to the QA and operations teams. And of course, when bugs were found, the finger pointing would start, blame would get passed around, and getting feedback could take days, sometimes even weeks. For modern software, that model is just completely broken. This slide really lays it all out, the old world versus the new. We're moving away from testing at the end to testing all the time. We're going from these super slow feedback loops to getting feedback almost instantly. And instead of teams working in their own little bubbles, it's now about a shared responsibility for quality. What does this all mean? Well, you catch bugs way earlier when they are so much cheaper to fix. But this new way of working, it needs a totally new technical foundation. And here is the real challenge. If you want to test continuously, you can't just wait around for some shared staging environment to be free. You need to be able to spin up fresh, isolated test environments for every single change to the code. And building that kind of on-demand infrastructure, that requires a very specific set of skills. Yep, it requires DevOps. So this right here, this is the modern testing toolkit. It's not just about knowing a test framework anymore. It's about automating the entire delivery process with pipelines, using tools like Jenkins. It's about packaging your apps with Docker, managing them at scale with Kubernetes, creating your infrastructure with code using Terraform, and running all of it on cloud platforms like AWS. Okay, so the path seems clear, right? Just learn these DevOps tools. But this is exactly where so many engineers get stuck. They start this learning journey and it often ends in frustration because there's a really common trap that a lot of people fall into. You've probably seen this yourself. Maybe you take a course on Docker, then you do another one on Terraform, you watch a tutorial on Jenkins, you learn all the syntax, all the basic commands, but then when you try to apply it to a real-world problem, something just feels missing. So why is that? It's because tools don't live in a vacuum. Knowing the syntax for Terraform is just step one. Knowing how Terraform builds the servers that Ansible is going to configure, which will then run the Docker containers managed by Kubernetes and have that whole thing automated by a Jenkins pipeline, that's what makes you job ready. It's about the whole system, not just the individual parts. This is what a real end-to-end workflow actually looks like. See how each tool kind of hands off the baton to the next one? They form a complete chain. This is the big picture that those isolated courses so often miss. And learning to build a complete system like this, well, that takes some serious dedication. Remember Rody from the beginning? He committed to this journey. He was working full-time, he had a newborn daughter at home, and he still carved out time every single day. He knew that a few months of focused effort, a temporary sacrifice, as he put it, was going to pay off for the rest of his career. And believe me, it absolutely did. So after he transformed his skills, Rody started looking for some new freelance work. He landed an interview, and let's just say the process was a little different. That's it. 5 minutes. That's how long it took after the interview ended for him to get the phone call. Hey, you're hired. Not 6 rounds of interviews, no waiting around for a week. 5 minutes. So you have to be asking, how on earth is that even possible in today's job market? Well, it's because he didn't just have a list of skills on his resume. He proved them. He showed up with a portfolio of projects that demonstrated he had a deep, systemic understanding of how all this stuff works. This is what a really valuable portfolio looks like. It's not 10 different little Hello World tutorials. It's one, maybe two, complex projects where you integrate multiple tools to solve a real problem, like building one of those on-demand test environments we talked about. It's well documented, which shows you can explain your decisions. This is what proves you think like an architect, not just somebody who knows a few commands. The takeaway here is so clear. Employers don't really care about a long list of tools. They want proof. Proof that you can build a complex system that actually delivers value to the business. And this focus on high-level, system-wide skills is becoming even more critical as we look to the future. And yeah, we have to talk about AI. There's a lot of fear out there that AI is coming to replace engineers, and for some tasks, that fear is pretty justified. The key to not just surviving, but actually thriving, is to understand what AI is really good at and what it's not. Let's be real here. AI isn't some far-off threat. It's here, right now. AI tools can already spit out boilerplate automation code, they can do visual regression testing, and they can write you basic Terraform or Docker files. All of the repetitive, low-level stuff, it's already being automated. But this is where things get really interesting. While AI is great at automating those isolated tasks, it really struggles with the high-level strategic work. It can't design a comprehensive testing strategy that actually aligns with what the business needs. It can't architect a complex system that uses a bunch of different tools. It has no judgment, no business context. And those uniquely human skills, they are now more valuable than they have ever been. This all leads to this idea of the T-shaped professional. Think about the letter T. The vertical part, that's your deep, specialized expertise. In this case, maybe it's test automation. But that horizontal bar, that's your broad knowledge across all the related fields like CI/CD, cloud, and security. It's this combination that makes you resilient, adaptable, and incredibly valuable. So, where do you even start? Well, first, get a handle on CI/CD pipelines, continuous integration, and continuous delivery. This connects right into the work you're probably already doing and helps you see that bigger picture. Second, learn containerization with Docker. It is the absolute fundamental building block of modern apps and your gateway to more complex tools like Kubernetes. But look, at the end of the day, Jenkins, Docker, Kubernetes, they're just today's tools. They'll be different in a few years. The real lesson here isn't just to learn a specific list of technologies. It's about adopting a mindset of constant learning and systems thinking. The tools are always going to change. The real question is, are you ready to change with them?